Congratulations, you made it past Easter, and in this video, I'm going to be sharing what you should be doing as a worship leader now that Easter is over. Coming up. Hey, Spencer here from leadingworshipwell.com, your daily dose of practical worship leading tips. If you want to find those tips, head over to Instagram or Facebook at Leading Worship Well, where I'm posting new worship leading tips every single day. But you're here on YouTube, so go ahead, hit subscribe down below, and let's get into it, because today we're talking about the fact that you did it. You made it past Easter, and congratulations, first of all. And let me just put this out there. Easter is crazy, right? On a normal year, Easter is crazy enough. You've got a bunch of different things that you need to plan for. You've got extra gatherings. You've got different elements that you need to create for your services, all of this stuff. But then what happened this year? Things changed last minute, right? And it was even crazier, I'm sure, because you had to figure out how to get your Easter services online and whatever you needed to do. Or maybe you did like a drive-through Easter or drive-in Easter service. And I'm sure that took a lot of work. I saw a lot of people doing that. I can't imagine the amount of work that took. So that being said, this past season was crazy. And now, as worship leaders, we know there's like two big events during the year during church. Not that other things aren't important too, but there's like two big events that we're getting ready for. We're getting ready for Easter, and we get ready for Christmas. And those are like the quote unquote busy seasons. But once those end, I know the feeling of, it's like, man, I just put in so much work. I had so much to do, and now it's over. And you're just left there thinking to yourself, what do I do now? Like, summer's coming. Programming in your church is starting to die down probably, so you don't have as many things on that side to get ready for, and so you don't have a big event like Easter or Christmas to get ready for. Maybe you've got like VBS in the summer. I'm not sure how that's going to work this year, but I'm sure you'll be preparing for that. Whatever it is, there's just not as much to do right now, but there's still a lot that we can do as worship leaders to be productive during this time coming out of Easter. And that's what I want to talk about today. So I've got some ideas, but before we get there, I just want to hear what your plans are. Let people know in the comments below, what are your plans now that Easter is over? Like, what are you going to be focusing on? Because we all know there's still more that we could be doing. It's just hard to wrap our minds around what we should be doing. So I want to learn from you. Everybody else wants to learn from you. Let us know in the comments below what you're doing now that Easter is over. I'll talk to you in a second. Thanks so much for leaving your comment down below. Let's get into it. We're going to be talking about what you can do now that Easter is over to stay productive as a worship leader. The first thing you need to do now that Easter is over is gather everything that you used to prepare for this Easter. Put it in a folder on your computer or a physical folder, whatever it is. Gather it all together and file it away for next year. And why would you want to do that? I'm talking about like set lists. I'm talking about special elements you created, orders of service, whatever you did. Service times, I don't know, whatever you needed to figure out this year, put it in a folder so that you have it for next year, and your future self will thank your present self for doing that. Why? Because whenever we plan for things, we usually look back to the past year, right? Like, what did I do last year for Easter? And that's helpful to see what you did. But whenever you don't have things organized and put in order, then you're like running around trying to find all those different things that you did. And so if you just do it right now, whenever it's all in front of you, like Easter just happened last week, so you know where everything is, just organize it and put it away so that when next Easter comes, you'll be able to look back at it. And I know that next Easter is, I hope, going to be different than this Easter. I'm pretty sure it will be. I think we'll be able to gather again. So I know it's going to be different, but it's still going to be so useful to see what songs did I do last year? How did I do it? I have a sneaking suspicion that a lot of us are going to want to show clips of what this Easter looked like next Easter. We're going to be like, hey, do you remember when we couldn't gather together? Here's what that looked like, but now we're here. So just think long term. Gather everything together right now, and your future self will thank you for doing that. The second thing that you should do now that Easter is over is to just sit back and reflect a little bit. Easter's here. Easter came and went, I should say. And now that it's gone, that means that a quarter of our year is gone. This first season of the year is done with. And so we can just move on and keep pushing forwards, or we can take this time that we have, some extra time that we have now that Easter is over, and just think about what happened these first 4 months of the year. And you can sit back and you can think about things like, did I start to accomplish my goals? Remember those goals we talked about setting at the beginning of the year? If you didn't set goals at the beginning of the year, I put together like a worksheet called 5 questions to help you crush your 2020 worship leading goals. If you didn't get that, I'll put a link in the description below. But if you did set goals, think about, how did I do? Like, I still have 3/4 of the year to finish those goals, but if I fell off track like 98% of people do, then there's still time to get back on track. Good leaders don't just not fulfill their goals and then be like, well, I didn't do it the first quarter of the year, so I'll just give up. No, they keep pushing and pushing and pushing and keep refocusing on those goals until they stick. So maybe that's what you need to do. Maybe you just need to set goals, whatever it is. That's one way you can reflect. You can also just ask yourself the question, what happened at the beginning of this year? Like, I know a lot happened, so I want you to take a second to celebrate, because when we're in the midst of ministry, like we are during Easter time, and we're just pushing and pushing and pushing, it's hard to really celebrate what's going on, right? Because we're just focused on what comes next. But now we have a second to look at what's happened and celebrate. And I'm sure there's a lot to celebrate in your church. Think about when you were meeting with your church at the beginning of the year. Maybe you added some new worship team members. Maybe something specific happened in the life of your church. And then we moved things online, right? And you figured it out. So you can celebrate that. So take time to reflect on this past season. Think about your goals. Celebrate what happened. You can even incorporate your worship team in this. Maybe you've still been meeting with your worship team in person, or you can set up a Zoom call or whatever and just get together. That's a way to pastor your worship team during this time. I'm going to talk about that in a future video, I believe, about how to pastor your worship team during this time. But that's one way you can do it. You can just be relational. Maybe you can't gather together for music. I think that sometimes we're too focused on music and we miss out on the relational piece. Now is the time to pour into that relational piece of leading your team. So set up a Zoom call and ask them this question. Say, hey, I just want to reflect on this past season. Like, the first quarter of the year is done, and I want to talk about what went well and what we can work on for the future, and then just hang out with your worship team and ask them their thoughts on that. So number 2, reflect on this past season. The third thing you should do now that Easter is over is to set up a system that will help you in the next busy season. And what do I mean by that? What's a system in worship ministry? Well, a system is something that you put in place ahead of time so that when the busy season comes, you've just got that already set up. You know how you're going to do whatever you need to do. So some examples of systems would be like, how are you going to audition people for your worship team? Do you have a system for that? Or are you just kind of always flying by the seat of your pants whenever you're doing that? Another system could be as simple as, how do I create the slides for Sunday? Like, whenever you have an order of how you do things, it makes it more efficient, instead of just like, well, I think I'll come in on this day this week, and then next week I'll do it on another day and put the slides together, and just order everything. Put it in a system so that you can just show up, follow the system. It'll be efficient and it'll get done. But the thing is, when we're in busy seasons, like I've been talking about, like Easter, you usually don't have time to set up those systems, and you're just running around. I call it working on your ministry versus working in your ministry. And for this past season, we just worked in our ministry. We've had a lot of events that we had to get ready for. We had to figure out how to live stream, all of that stuff, right? And so you were working in your ministry, and that's good. Obviously, you have to work in your ministry sometimes, but you also have to work on your ministry and think about long-term vision, how to set up these systems that will benefit you in the future. And that's what you have the time to do right now. You have the time to set up a system, multiple systems, that will help you succeed when the next busy season of Christmas or your VBS or whatever it is, whatever you have going on at your church that's going to be busy. If you set up a system now, it'll benefit you in the future. So use this time to think about what's been inefficient in my workflow of worship leading. Is it how I pick out songs for Sunday? Is it how I create slides? Is it how I run worship team rehearsals? We are going to meet for worship team rehearsals at some point in the future in person. I'm telling you, it will happen. So prepare for it now while you have time to do that. Set up a system that will help you in the next busy season. Work on your ministry and not just in your ministry. Number 4, and I know this video is coming out like a week after Easter, but I'm sure some of you still haven't done this thing that I'm about to talk about yet because there's still a bunch of stuff to do. But the 4th thing that you need to do now that Easter is over, if you haven't done it yet, is you need to find time to rest. I've been talking in this whole video about how Easter is a busy season and how you've been putting in more and more work than you normally would, right? They weren't 40-hour weeks if you're a full-time worship leader. They were probably like 60 hours a week, and there was a lot to do. And so you probably didn't get much time to rest. That always happens during Easter and Christmas, and that's okay. Hopefully you still found time to take a day off, but you're exhausted, I'm sure. There was a lot to figure out. On top of that, things changed at the last minute, so you need to rest. You need to take a day off. I'm giving you permission to take a day off, 2 days off, 3 days off, whatever it is that you need to be recharged, because this past season was tiring. I'm sure you were tired out by all of the stuff that you had to do, and that's okay. It was worth it, right? It was worth putting in the extra work. But now we need to recognize that ministry is a marathon and not a sprint. We can't just sprint forever. We might be able to do that for a year or 5 years or maybe 7 years, but eventually we're going to be too exhausted to continue on. So you need to treat ministry like a marathon and not a sprint, and you need to pull things back a little bit right now and just take a little time to rest. And it's never been easier to rest than right now because you're not meeting at your physical church location. So that's okay. Take advantage of that. It's not bad to do that. You need rest, and your rest is actually productive. It will help you to be more productive whenever you're doing things in the future as you continue in the next season of ministry. So just find time to rest. Take a day off. I'm giving you permission to take a day off. You need to now that Easter is over. The final thing you can do now that Easter is over is to pour into yourself. Actually invest into yourself, learn some new worship leading skills, watch some videos on YouTube, whatever it is. Whenever there's a bunch of things to do, like there was during Easter, that might seem like it's a waste of time because I've got so many physical things that I need to do that I don't have time for that. But now is the time to do it because that's what's going to help you in the future. Do you see this thread of thinking forward to the future all throughout this? We want to use these seasons that aren't so busy to set ourselves up for the future, and one of the ways we can do that is to pour into ourselves. So watch more videos like this on YouTube. I've got a bunch of videos that you can watch that will teach you a bunch of different things about leading worship. There's tons of other great worship leading YouTubers. If you want a training that I put together one called 5 Tips to Instantly Improve Your Worship Leading. That's definitely worth checking out. I'll link it in the description below. In that, you're going to learn 5 things that you can do that will instantly improve your worship leading. They're simple things, but a lot of people miss them. So don't miss out on that. 5 tips to instantly improve your worship leading. Thanks so much for joining me today. My name is Spencer Cormany, once again, from Leading Worship Well. Go follow me over on Instagram or Facebook. I'm posting worship leading tips every single day there. But thanks so much for joining me. Until I see you next time, keep leading worship well.